Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart for joining us as a sponsor. Quality Auto Mart was born in 1985. They are owned and operated by Mark and Nancy Repke. Quality Auto Mart provides all the services, repairs, and maintenance for your vehicle's needs with a 3-year auto parts and labor warranty. They offer complimentary vehicle safety inspection and estimates. Also, they offer a shuttle service, and the 4th oil change is always on them. They are located at 7307 on State Road 46 in Batesville, Indiana. Make sure you give them a call at 812-934-2301. All right. Hey, guys, what's going on? Welcome back. Doing another show here. Merle, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic.
Fantastic. I like it. I'm excited for today, Merle. We're not that they were bad topics, because they were very good topics to talk about. But today we're going to be a little bit less serious, a little bit more lighthearted. So
I don't know. We
there are some
being
questions
less, but this could get even more serious.
It might. So yeah. Anyways, we'll get into the show here. But I hope you guys are out there. I hope you're having a good week. I really do appreciate you guys hanging in there, joining us for another show. So.
Yeah. Well, what are we going to do today?
Today we are going to talk and maybe ask some questions, that you dads out there, you strong dads out there have thought about or have actually been asked before. So we're gonna jump into some frequently asked questions that some strong dads get asked sometimes. So it should be riveting. I'm going to refer a lot to you, Merle, because of the age of my kids compared to yours. I think maybe you've been asked and kind of experienced some of these things more than I have. But these are some of the things that run through my mind. So I assume if I'm thinking it, maybe some of you dads out there.
The reason why we're kind of smiling and laughing here is that some of these questions, Kyle and I were talking about them, have to do with girls.
Yeah.
And raising girls.
Yeah.
And talking about things like periods and things like that. And Kyle's kind of freaking out a little bit, like, what do I do with this? So we actually
it'll be fun.
We're gonna have some fun. I mean, we're gonna talk about a lot of different kind of questions that come up, but we're just smiling because some of those girl things, you're like, honey, why don't you go take care of this, honey? You know, like, this is weird. I don't want to talk about this.
Yes. So
all right.
It'll be exciting. So
all right, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors first, and then we will get into some of this. All right, so we would like to thank Quality Auto Mart for joining us and being a sponsor of Strong Dads. So thanks to Mark and Nancy Repke for just their support of our messaging and getting behind what we're doing. So for any of your automotive needs, go out to see Quality Auto Mart, located outside of Batesville, Indiana on Route 46.
Good deal. Yeah, Strong Dads, we would also like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. I know they are getting primed and ready for the fall season. I'm sure mums are getting ready to be put out if they're not already. So
it's about that time.
So they got a lot of awesome landscaping stuff going on, also home decor stuff. So for sure, check them out. Let them know we sent you up there. So thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solutions.
All right. So when you were a young lad,
I still am a young lad.
Did you go to your mommy or your daddy for questions? Or you probably knew everything. You didn't have questions.
Who did I go to? That's a good question, bro. I would say based off of the topic at hand would have determined who I went to.
Yeah. That's...
So you know, as far as, you know, I can honestly say I don't know if I ever really like went to my dad and be like, hey, I got a girl problem here, right? But it wasn't necessarily that it was just that my dad couldn't have given me advice. It's just something, I don't know. I started dating Jenny, so, you know, the girl that I ended up marrying. So, like, I got a winner right away, right?
Yeah. You kept it simple.
Yeah.
You simplified.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, sports questions, stuff like that, I definitely would refer, you know, mostly to my dad with that. So, I mean, kind of a little bit of both of them. I mean, I would say for sure probably both of them. What about you?
Yeah. Well... If you had to ask my dad a serious question, like about girls or sex or anything like that, you were never going to get a straight answer. Like, he couldn't handle that, and he would turn it into a joke. Yeah. And then you both start laughing because he didn't know how to handle it. So anything that had to do with that, we would take that to my mom. And, you know, and again, then you'd have to kind of skirt around like, Mom. Like. So I don't remember asking a whole lot of questions. honestly, probably most of my answers came through the locker room or a
Yeah.
bunch of guys talking. We didn't have that thing called the internet,
Oh,
that they have today. So
Did you have color TV?
yeah, we did have a color TV.
Oh, okay, that's good.
but our color TV actually had to get up and go to the TV and change the channels.
You didn't have that cool remote little thing?
Yeah, no, we didn't have. I know that when we first got a remote, it was like, man, give me the remote, give me the remote. Yeah. So
well, yeah. So Merle, as we jump into some of these questions, I think it's going to be really interesting because obviously you have raised now 4 boys, and you have the sole girl,
the sole daughter.
The sole daughter. So, and now she's in high school.
She's kicking my butt.
So I'm intrigued because mine are 9 and 7, and obviously your daughter is not 9 or 7, and she's obviously surpassed that time frame. So I'm intrigued to kind of see your perspective raising 4 boys versus mine of having 2 girls. So it'll be very interesting as we jump into these.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So you wrote this one so how should you handle your daughter dating?
The dating.
Well, what are you going to say?
Well, this is something the guys and I sit around at the firehouse and we'll talk about. A couple of the guys do have girls that they're raising. We talk about it. It's like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna be the dad that sits there with the shotgun, at the kitchen table when the boyfriend comes and picks up, your daughter and. And I'll be honest, and I've heard this idea when it comes to dating, of being like overly protective, and then I've heard like the opposite of that of just like, just whatever, it is what it is, right? And this idea of dating, this is something I've thought a lot about, obviously raising 2 girls. And I'll give you credit where credit's due. Brian Tomes at Crossroads Church, he talks about this a little bit when he did his Man series. And he basically is like, if one of your buddies came over and said, hey, man, can I borrow your skis? This really nice pair of skis that he had, he'd be like, no. Like, these are mine, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to this idea of dating with your daughter, it's like, oh, yeah, go ahead and take her out, do whatever you want, right? Yeah. And so this idea of dating that kind of really started to, interject some things in my mind as far as what I want to do when my daughter start dating. And one of the things that I would like to. I think I'll have enough. I'll have enough balls to do it. We'll see. Is when the first boy comes and picks up your daughter or maybe not necessarily the first, but just in general, when someone comes and picks up your daughter, to actually get in the car with them and have them drive you around just to test out their driving skills.
Oh yeah, that's a good point right there. Yeah.
I think is kind of again, this is all Brian Tome's thought process. So I'm not trying to take this as my own, but I would love to think that I could do that. That would be.
Oh, that would be fun.
I think I'm gonna try it. Yeah. We'll see how well Ava and Mia respond to that.
Yeah. Dad, you're embarrassing me.
Yes. Yeah. What about you? So this idea of dating, obviously with your daughter, is this something that has come up and you're kind of dealing with currently?
Yeah. So our daughter's 17, and I guess what I'll say first is you handle this way before they're dating. Like, you're actually at the prime time right now of handling how your daughters are going to date. Yeah. And I think we sometimes dismiss this, and then we wonder why our girls date bad guys. But they're going to learn about how a guy is through you when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. Yeah. And so if you are a jerk of a husband to your wife, if you're mouthy or disengaged or whatever, that's what they're actually learning. Yeah. That's what is being imprinted in them. So, all of a sudden you come in with these big words of, you're not going to date this kind of guy and it's a major contradiction to what they've been seeing out of you. You've lost all credibility. She's going to date whatever is appeasing to her at the time. So I think a whole lot of that is laying down the work early, showing your girls how a man should be, so that you have credibility when you do go to speak into their life. I'll tell you how I've kind of handled this, because my daughter has never brought to me, hey, Dad, I want to date this guy. What do you think about him? Right. Okay, like that would be awkward for her. Right. Okay. Right. But she does talk to my wife. Sure. And I really, because of that, and I want to just keep that protected, that's mom and daughter relationship. My wife and I are on the same page on the character that we would like our daughter to be involved with in terms of dating. And so I trust that when my wife weighs in on the type of guy, that it also is pretty much mirroring what I would say.
Speaking on your behalf as well. Yeah.
So, there's simple things just that then Linda and I align on and make sure that we're all good about that. And the one thing that and it hasn't come up to us, but we have talked about what is inappropriate. All right. Like the situation right now, she's dating a guy and she drives. And he's not legally permitted to drive her around yet. He's got his license, but he can't drive other people in the car.
Yeah.
And so she has to drive on the dates.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so we need to lay some things out, right? He's going to be responsible for paying a portion of the gas or whatever. Like, you're not toting him around.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we just laid some things out. And this guy's been a great guy. He actually offered that way in advance. So it's just those kind of things. So I don't know. I think there's so much more to be done with the groundwork way before they ever even date, so that they have an image of what it is. And then, leading up to it, we always said you're not going to date till you're 16.
Okay.
And so that was something that when they were 13, 14, 15, we were like, we'll wait till you're 16. It doesn't mean you can't talk to guys at school and stuff like that, but to actually go on an official date, you're going to be 16. And again, that even goes down to the age is just the point where you start having the conversation of saying, okay, now I'm 16. Just like a driver's license. Just because you're 16 doesn't mean you get a driver's license. It means now we can start to entertain whether you're mature enough, you're responsible enough, all these things. And so, that's just what we did. We said, when you're 16, we'll have these conversations.
Yeah.
So,
I got a question on that, Merle.
Yeah.
So with what you were talking about, so, I'm sure your daughter, had a tendency sometimes when it comes to the dating aspect to confide, in Linda when it comes to that, something that in our house, we have told our girls many times over that there are no secrets. So anything that mommy knows, daddy's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach a situation that is sensitive that if your daughter's confiding in Linda when it comes to, the dating aspect, does your daughter know that you're going to know as well? Or is this something that you have kind of set boundaries as far as like whatever you tell mommy when it comes to, or not mommy, obviously, whatever you tell your mom, I'm going to know about, or is this something you're like, no, like if you confide in your mom and you don't want it to go past that, or how do you kind of, tackle that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty established in our house that if she's going to talk to mom, it's fair game to go to dad.
Okay.
It's fair game. Now, whether Linda chooses to bring it to me,
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say that she brought everything because I don't know it if
Right,
she didn't bring something to me. But the idea here is that we trust each other and we're on the same page.
Yeah.
If you have two different value systems and your daughter is, knows that, well, I know this wouldn't float under dad's value system, but it might under mom's. Well, then obviously mom's going to protect her and not going to share that. So, that's why it's so much of this groundwork needs to be done way before the day they say, hey, I'm interested in a guy.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. So this is the tough one here. This is one of a couple ones that are a little tough. So I've thought a lot about this very question and this very kind of when my girls get to this stage in life. How do you go about talking about the 3-letter the sex?
The sex or the sex talk. The birds and the bees.
The birds and the bees. How do you tackle that? I'm not there yet, but I would probably venture to say it's probably a conversation, kind of, again, age appropriate, kind of, leading in and kind of talking about that now.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about just daughters. We're talking about our kids.
Yes.
Okay. So any of your kids, for years, people have complained about the schools teaching their kids different things that they don't, I don't want my kid to hear this stuff. They're indoctrinating.
Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect example. Stop relying on the schools to teach your kids about sex education. Many of our schools teach a level of that, and like in our district, and I even taught sex education, we would send home a little letter or something saying, hey, we're just asking for permission. If you don't want your kid to attend this, fine, and they sign it or not, But the school's support system, a school needs to be reinforcing what you value, and if they don't reinforce what you value, then you say, no, we're going to pull ourselves out of that. But If you just say, well, I'll let the school do it, and I disengage, well, then shame on you.
Yeah.
Okay, then you're going to get what you get. And so
Yeah.
I think it's really important that this education, just like religious education, all that, first and foremost, comes out of the home.
Yep.
Don't wait. And so I do know that this is a part where, we talk about, I need a mom in the house. I need a dad in the house. I need a mom to talk with her daughters. Okay. And this is not just so much that moms know more. This is so that the daughter feels comfortable. You know how uncomfortable it would be for my daughter to me to explain to her menstrual cycle? This is weird, Dad. Yeah. This is weird. Now, actually, because I taught sex education and I was an anatomy teacher for years, like I probably know quite a bit more about that whole biology than Linda does. But that doesn't matter. She says, "You're dad, you're weird, you're not talking about this."
Yep.
And so the idea here is like, it is I spoke with all of our boys, and I think it's important this is not just a one big sit down talk and we're going to spew it all out there. This is an age appropriate and laid out at different times.
Yep.
And it just starts, from very young ages of just talking about your private parts and protecting that. And then if you've done that enough times, by the time you've got a 13, 14-year-old kid, you're like, you know what, let's talk about, in the case of your girls, and maybe Jenny's speaking with them. Okay, so what do you girls know about your period or menstruation or whatever these words that we start, and just start to test the waters as to where they are.
Yep.
Okay. And you can look in a kid's eyes to see if they're following you. If you go way too deep, like our youngest son, I've gone different, tested the waters on him, and he's like, "Can we just go out and play some basketball, Dad?" Because he's just not ready for a lot of that talk.
Now, I'm sure some of you dads out there have heard this. I mean, especially locker room talk. I know at the firehouse we get this. Like, I remember when I told the guys at work that I was having a girl. After we found out after we actually had Ava and Mia, we found out afterwards. But to find out that you're having a daughter, I've heard this saying before. With a daughter you have to worry about all the penises. With a boy you only have to worry about the one, right? So when you approach boys versus girls, because obviously you've experienced both. I think I hear the underline of just being consistent and kind of, introducing these topics earlier on versus, waiting to one big sit down. But did you find a drastic difference in having these sex talks with your daughters versus, with your daughter versus, with your boys?
Yeah. When we talk about just biology, you're just talking about the explanation of everything from wet dreams to puberty to pubic hair, all those things. So that's kind of the biology. But as far as the actual then interaction in a relationship, how to treat the girl and having sex and all of those kinds of things, I really have treated my boys probably much more as if I were the dad of the girl they were getting ready to date. And so, once it's kind of like, once you taught your son how to go to the firing range and shoot a gun, after they've learned that, then you're drilling down with, now you better handle it right.
Yep.
You better handle it right. And you need to know that there's accountability. And so I've just made it very clear with our boys, listen, dude, like you're a great guy. But I know the pressures, I know the temptations, but I want you to know all the fallout. And you better handle this right. And so my boys have always felt like you're already on the girl's side. Yeah, because they're the one who's they're the ones going to carry the greatest amount of responsibility if you don't treat her well.
Wow.
Whether she gets pregnant or whether you're abusive to her, she's going to carry the greatest amount. And so I've always been very strong with saying, listen, if you mistreat this girl that you're dating, you backtalk her, you're smart alecky, you're abusive, you're going to deal with me. Because, I hope you deal with her dad too, but you're going to deal with me.
Yeah.
All right. And as far as our daughter goes, it's been a lot more of, okay, like, I don't want you to walk around skeptical and paranoid about this guy, but test his character early.
Yep.
And we've made it very clear, know his family.
Yeah.
Know how his dad is.
Yeah.
If his dad's a good dad, there's a good chance he's a pretty good dude.
Yep.
But if his dad is a knucklehead, then I'm proceed with caution. It doesn't. I'm not going to write the ticket on him already.
Right.
But you got to understand this is what he's seen.
Yep. I like it. I know you kind of you talked a little bit about this, but I gotta ask again. I'm not here yet. How should dads be involved with the idea of periods? So when our daughters are going through this stage in life, what role do you kind of see or recommend dads kind of take in this? Please teach me.
So
I'm not ready for this, Merle.
I can't say I've done a great job with this. So all of the education of it has come through my wife in terms of just the care and all that sort of thing. I've been more sarcastic.
Yeah.
I've not always been the best, probably, in terms of my wife looks at me and rolls her eyes like, "Did you really just say that?" And so I'm kind of guilty.
Yeah.
But I think part of what the girls need to know as they're coming through, because the period is a big deal with them. Body changes and the mood changes. And it's in many cases.
You mean the mood changes get worse? And they already are for my 7 and 9-year-old?
They have accelerant on them.
Okay, yeah.
And the idea then now of them learning to become aware of their mood. In other words, catching their mood before everybody else has to catch their mood. And so one of the things that I did say with our daughter, I mean, Linda carried all of the how-tos.
Sure.
But I just did weigh in on listen, you know what? I know you're going through this change, but the world's not going to change because you're going through the change. So the idea
kind of
that,
having perspective.
Yeah, that your brother is still your little brother,
Yep.
and he was annoying before your first period, and he's annoying after.
Yeah.
But the way that you're coming at him now, you don't have permission to destroy him.
Yeah.
You don't have permission just because all of a sudden you're going to have to learn to self-regulate yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing the moods at all. I understand, but you also have to be more aware and more responsible with them. And so I've had those talks with our daughter, just say, hey, this is part of you managing yourself now as you become more of a woman. And I felt like that was a very good talk. And I feel like our daughter at first, it was like the drama of it all. And now I feel like it's pretty good. In fact, she'll even say now, I'm kind of in one of those moods, and we'll joke about, oh, are you on your period? Yeah. And it's just so much lighter now than it was.
Yeah. Now, did you find, as your daughter kind of, jumped into the obviously puberty and getting into that, did you find that was when, because obviously girls, and I say obvious, like I know this, but girls have image, like they deal a lot with it. One of the big struggles I think across the board for women is probably similar to men dealing with, lust and pornography. Women deal a lot with image problems. Did you find that was like the point in time where the image of like a self-image became, a struggle, or is that something that happened before that?
I'd say, I want to be careful because I don't want to generalize anything. I think every kid could be a little bit different in this area. I think she was, prior to coming into puberty, you get these girls that are in 6th, 7th, and the 8th grade, and they're becoming really sensitive to their style and how they look. Because they want to be a woman, they want to come into this womanhood, and they're really trying to up their style of just pushing that limit a little bit more than they did back in 4th grade. Okay, but then what I found is kind of once they go through that transition, they realize it's just another day. Life is still going on.
Right.
And I've actually seen. You'll see high school girls, especially our daughter is involved in athletics, and I think that's a great neutralizer. Like, hey, the sport is more important than how you look right now. Yeah. And so, pull your hair back, go drop some sweat on the floor, and let's get after it.
Sure.
And I think that's been really good. I don't see our daughter getting nearly involved in all of the style and the look as she was just 2 years ago.
Really?
Now she's like, whatever. Like, I've got stuff to do. It doesn't mean she doesn't take care of herself at all. She does, but it's not nearly as finicky as it was.
Okay.
That's a long answer to that, but it's like
no, that's good.
That the image thing now, her image is not totally wrapped up in I have to be the perfect woman and have the look. She's now like, no, I'm just a person, and all my girlfriends have the same issues I have, and take me or leave me, kind of thing.
So then, jumping into this next one, and again, obviously, this isn't just dealing with daughters. This is obviously both. How do you, tackle the topic of breakups? So again, high school relationships, they come and go, right? How did you deal, or how would you recommend us young dads dealing with that when it comes the idea of breaking up, for your daughter or your son? This is a lot of me. This is good. This is good feedback here.
This is good. Well, it's good too because it's making me think back about like what I've experienced, what I've done, what I've seen happen. I think a lot of the breakup thing happens prior to them even dating. Okay, the idea of, you understand that when you're going to get in a relationship with somebody, you're going to give them a part of your heart. Okay. I mean, we talk about that in marriage all the time. We talk about the idea of you hand your heart into somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're very clear in our house about the power of the word love. Like, you can say you love pizza, and you and I understand what that means.
Yep.
But the first time you say to a boy or a girl, I love you, it doesn't mean the same thing as loving pizza.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And so we have taught our kids that if you use that word love in relationship, you just went to a whole different level. And whether you might think it was casual or not, love is interpreted differently. And it's a pretty heavy duty word.
Yeah.
Okay. And so teaching them in advance, like, you need to guard your heart. You don't emotionally just throw your heart out to anyone. It is good to test the waters. Is this person somebody, the word that first comes to mind is, can you trust this person? So before you hand them your heart, before you say, I love you, you have to know that this is a person of high character quality that you can trust. And so, I want to prevent the breakup stuff or the hurt by limiting how much they're going to expose their heart. And that's perfectly fine to do. Now, that we have some people who never let their heart go into a relationship because they're so afraid of it. And that's the other extreme of not being healthy either. But at some point you say, okay, like, this is a person of high character, a person I can trust. Okay. After that, there's just not a lot of great advice in terms of hearts get broken, man.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing as a dad is when your daughter has her heart broken, to say, hey, we're here for you. We're here for you.
Yep.
I think that's going to be, in many cases, their first experience of starting to understand what grief is. Of sometimes, like in a divorce, you'll hear people say, I feel like a part of me has died.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so it's going to be that first experience of part of them dying. Well, why? Well, because they actually took their heart out and they gave it to somebody. So it's their first, there's all kinds of great conversations that can come out of this with saying, okay, like, listen, let's take a breath. You gave your heart to someone, right? And it got hurt.
Yep.
Right. So let's talk about this. And helping your kid move through that grieving process. When they're in the middle of it, when it's first being dropped, they don't think there's, another day is going to come, but they get through it.
Yep.
And I think as a dad, you can be there to reassure, be on their side.
Yep. Yeah. This is something I know now. This is probably one of my most common prayers for my girls. Is, man, I want God to protect my girl's heart and my girl's reputation. But along with that, I want God to equip me to be able to do that. This is something that I find, man, just exactly what you're talking about. When you start dating and then when your heart is broken, man, that's a pain I've not had to experience in the sense of feeling that for my daughters. I'm not really good at having empathy for other people. And I'm sure if and when the day ever comes that my daughter's hearts are broken, I'm sure mine will break a little bit too. But this is something that I'm trying to really prepare I'm asking God, inviting God into this to help prepare me to, deal with these situations when they do come. But man, I want God to protect my girl's heart, just exactly for what you're saying. Yeah. Just that grieving process. I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jenny and I talked because Jenny and I, we started dating in high school, and the statistics would show high school relationships are not going to end, in marriage. And we're just waiting for the day when we say, don't worry about it. It's just a high school relationship. It probably wouldn't last anyways. And our girls are going to be like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, mom and daddy and uncle, your aunt and uncle both did the same thing. So
yeah. Lynn and I had this conversation just a couple nights ago. I don't know, guys are different too. Like, I was very guarded. I didn't use that word love. Linda's probably, I think, the first girl I ever said I love, even though I dated quite a few girls prior, but I just never threw that word around. But I don't know why. I think it's part of my own insecurity or whatever. I always broke up with girls before they broke up with me.
You just sensed it, right?
Well, like, if I thought the water was getting cold, I was like, okay, get you. And I think that was, I may be hypersensitive to not wanting to get my heart up there, and so as a high school boy, like, I can't ever say that my heart was broken because I always held it back. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that was kind of my wiring, and I was fearful of diving in head first. So. Well,
this next question, I know I've heard you and Linda talk a little bit about this. I think you probably even shared a little bit about this on our show before. What about the idea of cell phones? Obviously, cell phones are anymore, I hate to say the word a necessity, but they've kind of become that for us in the world we live in. What are your thoughts on cell phones with kids and age appropriate and how all that looks?
Man, we've done shows and shows on this, and Lynn and I have a pretty strong stance on it, and through our ministry. And I can only just say that the stance that I take on it is not an emotional stance. It's a fact stance. It's a fact stance, and the research just continues to show this. This cell phone is one of the most dangerous things that your kid, potentially dangerous, right? Guns can save your life, or guns can ruin your life, right? And cell phones have a lot of those same sort of characteristics. And, when we first started playing around with cell phones, it was just the coolest thing ever. But now we know the level of connection that it brings. Not that your kid can just go out and connect, but other things and people can come in and connect. And so the old idea here is, would you just let a stripper come in your house and strip in front of your kids? Right. Would you just let a guy come in your house and start just cussing out you and your family as you're at the family dinner table? Would you allow that? No. No. And, well, you just have to know the cell phone is that doorway.
Yeah.
And
it's what's behind door number one, right?
It is. And it's sometimes it doesn't even, you don't even seek it out, right? You get different ads that just pop up and stuff like that. You're like, oh. So I just think the cell phone thing, we can't be ignorant about it any longer. Now, and I've said before, I don't want the government to come in and start making rules on you have to be 16 to get a cell phone. I want the parents to step up and say, you know what, in our house, here is the criteria. And so in our house in particular, the criteria has been when you're 14, we'll talk. When you're 14, we'll talk. Up until 14, no. All bets are off. I don't care. You don't need a cell phone. And I will just tell you, like, parents said, fool themselves or buy the lie that, well, all my kids, all their friends have them, and he's the only one. Be a parent. I mean, I'm way over that. Be a parent. You don't even go for that garbage, all right? When your kid says, I'm the only one in the school that doesn't have a cell phone, you should pat yourself on the back. Okay, because you're finally making a stand for a good reason. And so at 14, we had the conversation. And the conversation is basically like, listen, it actually is at Christmas when they're in their 14th year, okay, is kind of what we've used with our youngest three. And all three of them have handled it completely differently. Because here's the thing that really matters, not their age, but their maturity. Okay? Both of our boys have lost their phone. I mean, in other words, us having to take them away within a matter of the first month of them getting it. Okay? And so us as parents went, okay, like we did the test. Now we know, all right? And so those were the boys. Okay? Our daughter, no. We've had some conversations about the amount of time. So we have a an hourly limit on use, and there's no social media allowed. And again, is all we're doing, and dads, you got to hear this, is all you're doing is trying to do test on trust. That's all you're trying to do, okay?
Yeah.
And to throw it out to your kid and just say, I trust you 100% and you're 14 years old, you're just being ignorant.
Yeah.
You're being ignorant. Slowly lower this cell phone into their hands. Let them have opportunity to prove, okay? Both of our boys failed, okay? And so, you know, I'm not trashing him. I'm saying is it speaks to their maturity or lack of.
Sure.
And that's okay. Like, that's where they are in their development.
Yep.
And so we've just limited that, and the cell phone is just a very, you know, it's one of those things. The cool thing about the cell phone is probably become the greatest tool for getting them to do certain things. And it's a consequence like no other, okay?
Yeah.
Like back in my day, it was the belt, right?
Yeah.
But now, obviously not when I was a teenager, but man, you tell a kid that you're taking their cell phone away.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of power.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, I'm going to use that in a way that is effective in helping them learn how to be better people.
Yeah.
So the long answer, it's a maturity thing.
I like that. That's really good.
It's a maturity thing, but don't just throw it in their hands and say it's open. It's open season.
Yep. Now, this next thing, this next kind of phase, and Jenny and I are kind of, we're getting ready to really jump in this. We've had a lot of talks about this idea of chores and allowances that come along with those chores. I know we've talked on the show a lot about the idea of from a very young age, introducing the idea of chores and maintaining the household. You know, it's a whole family, you know, that's involved in you know, maintaining this house and cleaning up at yourself, making your beds, you know, so on and so forth like that. But then the idea of which is, I think, a natural thing, because, you know, as my girls are getting older, there's certain things that they see that they want, and they're like, hey, you know, can we get an allowance? I'm sure some of their friends are getting allowance. That's where they're kind of hearing this idea, you know, if I take the trash out, if I feed the dog, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts, you know, speaking from experience as far as this idea of allowance? Because I know you and Linda have kind of I think a fairly unique approach to this idea of allowance, and kind of what you kind of the approach you've taken on this.
Yeah, I mean, we do not associate their pay with a specific job. Like if you clean the toilet, you'll get this. What we've done is, and we've talked frequently about this, between the ages of 2 and 3, you start to teach your kid about the responsibility of chores. Mm-hmm. We actually had somebody write us back on a YouTube comment about how we were promoting slavery with children. Oh, wow. And I was like, just get over yourself already. Yeah. No, what we're teaching, we are faith-based, and our faith is Christianity. Mm-hmm. And Christ came to serve, not to be served. Mm-hmm. And so the greatest gift that we can teach at a very early age is that our kid is not the center of the universe. Yep. They're part of the universe, and the universe to benefit needs their hands, needs their feet, needs them to contribute.
Right.
And so we know that the greatest way to get people out of depression is to give them purpose. We know that the thing that leads people in depression is when they don't feel like they have purpose. Okay? And so from the ages of 2 and 3, when your kid starts to become aware of how they can interact with the world, I'm asking them, hey, you know what? We're going to clean up some toys. I need your help here. Come on over here. Help me out. Yep. Okay. And I'm not, I shouldn't say asking. I'm like, no, this is what we do.
Right.
I'm stating this. All right. So the chores thing, we want to start that very early. And by the time they're in, you know, elementary grades, like, you decide in your house what you want. But whether it's cleaning rooms or doing laundry or doing dishes, whatever it is, like, just lay it out so that your kid knows this is what our home needs in order to function. Okay, so that's the chore thing. All right. Now, if I go out and I'm doing something different, like we're going to bust out some concrete and pour a new sidewalk. All right. Yeah. I'll say, hey, guys, come on over here. This is your Saturday today. Mm-hmm. And we're going to bust out concrete and pour this up. And I'll pay them some money. Yep. Right. Because, like, it's above and beyond. It's something different. And I'll pay them a wage to do that, because I want them to see, like, hey, there's some way you can make some cash.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's just talk about the allowance thing.
Yep.
the biggest thing that we found with allowance was we needed to teach our kids money awareness. And so we did this not as a reward. We did this for one of the biggest areas that people's life goes sideways is through money and finance.
Yes.
And so recognizing very early that if your kids don't understand the concept of money, capitalism, free market, if they don't understand that they will be destroyed by it. And they'll wonder, when's my check coming in from the welfare department?
Yep.
Okay. And so what we've tried to do is, and we just used age. Okay. We use age as kind of the automatic boost in pay.
Okay.
But we just said, okay, listen, we are your bank. Okay. You're 8 years old. We know you can't go out and get a job.
Yep.
We're your bank. So at 8 years old, you're going to get $8 a week. Okay. And we teach them right off the bat, $8 a week. 10% of that is going to go to the church. Okay, that's our home. You do what you want to do with that.
Yep.
We want them to know that first and foremost, God provided all of this stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so 10%. 20% goes into your savings that can only be pulled out with our permission, okay, when you're young. So big ticket items, okay?
Sure.
So 20% of that. The rest of it is your money, okay? But now here's the kicker, all right? This is their money to learn how to manage. And so we've had some of our children save that money, and then when they want to go buy something really cool, they've got a couple $100 stored up.
Wow.
And it's like, hey, go, yeah, we approve of that. Go buy it.
Yep.
We have other children who have that money, and it's gone before the end of the week on Mountain Dew or junk food or whatever, okay?
Yep.
But here's the deal. We don't ever give our kids other money, okay? So if all of a sudden it's Friday and they say, hey, I have some friends going to Kings Island. Can I have $30? Can I have $40? No, we're not. No. What do you have in your account? What do you have?
Yep.
And man, I'm just telling you, like, that has been the greatest tool ever for teaching them about money responsibility. We do not, obviously, we give our kids money every week, okay? But we don't we're not an ATM.
Sure.
And we're teaching them the understanding, like, when it's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
And mommy and daddy don't
not a
ask
money
us.
tree.
Yeah, we're not a money tree.
But now with that though, I mean, so like whatever they're involved in sports. Like if there's an activity that they're doing that is associated with the school, if there's a fee associated with that, are you saying you and Linda would cover that?
We cover those things. We cover vacations. We cover Christmas. We cover birthdays. So
But if you were on vacation and one of your kids wanted something from a souvenir shop, that would come out of their.
They better bring their money.
Yep.
Okay. They better bring their money. I mean, if we're doing something as a family, if the family is going to go to a movie or go out to eat, no, Linda and I are covering that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But if they want to do something that's specific to them, okay. And sometimes there are negotiations on things as the kids have gotten older. So with their cars, we told them early on, we will pay half of your car. Okay, so if you save $1,000, we'll throw in $1,000. You can buy a $2,000 car. Okay, and that's just something that we agreed to do.
Right.
I mean, we had one of our sons saved like $10,000, and I was like, dude, please do not ask us to throw $10,000 in. I don't have $10,000 to throw into your car fund. And that became a joke. Like he was stashing so much money over all the years. So it's like, oh, crud. I hope he doesn't want this kind of car.
That's hilarious. Merle, you got to take this next one. I know you and Linda have done shows on this.
We should do a whole separate show.
We probably should. What about this idea of if your son or daughter comes to you and says that they're not sure if they're a boy or a girl?
Oh, man.
Oh, I
Are
can't
you really asking me this?
We should do a whole show on this.
Yeah. So this is a question that probably it blows us away because it's not a question that would come up 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure in some pocket, some house across the country, you might have this, but this is now a common question that's coming into our office.
I'm sure.
Okay. And it is commonly again, I'm going to speak facts here of what we actually see. I'm not BSing you with anything else.
Sure.
I don't care what the newspaper said or whatever. Like, this is girls coming into our office, high school girls, middle school girls coming in, and they've made the statement, or they're starting to act like they don't know whether they're a girl or not. They think they could be a boy. And so they come in and they've learned phrases like binary. I'm non-binary.
Non-binary, yep.
Okay. And so, like, 3-4 years ago, I'm like, what's binary? Like, what do you mean? Like, okay.
I'm still not 100% sure what it means.
Yeah. Well, so the binary means there's two
Yeah.
types of us. And so if I'm non-binary, I'm not choosing the male or the female. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So here, this is a very serious thing. I think first off, we have to be really careful as dads to not look at our daughters and be ignorant of the world they're in. Okay,
Yes.
so here's what happens. That daughter of yours, and I could say son, but I'm just telling you that mostly these are the daughters.
Yep.
They're sitting at school, and they're in a cafeteria, and they've got 6, 7, 8 girls around them, and the conversation is coming up, and somehow it starts to become, and I will tell you this, like, it becomes a social contagion. You have one who's a little bit more assertive about speaking about it, and they're like, I don't know if I really am a girl. Like, I like to dress like a guy, and, I kind of would, my hair, I like it when it's short, and guys kind of gross me out, and they start that talk. And before you know it, like, you have a number of girls at that table that are starting to share that conversation. Okay.
Yep.
And so it's just the seed of doubt and question has been planted. So if you as a dad just go and look at your girl and say, you're an idiot, you're stupid, that's ridiculous. Well, you're being ignorant about what they're hearing way more than they're hearing from you, because they're spending a lot more hours at the school setting than they are with you. So I'm asking you, strong dads, don't just blow this up with your emotion. Because if you do, here's the key for us strong dads. You've got to keep the relationship maintained with your kid. And in this case, we're talking about your daughter. Your relationship is how you can speak to them. If you blow up the relationship, you will lose the opportunity to speak into them, while these other 5, 6, 7 girls are building the relationship.
Yeah.
And so this is all about trust and relationship. And so if you hear stuff like this that you don't like to hear, or you disagree with, or it's immoral in your eyes, remember, relationship first. Okay. That does not mean you're permissive.
Yeah.
That's not at all. You just have to keep the door open to be able to speak what you believe is right, and to lay that out well. Okay. And so when we have these conversations, you're like, okay, tell me what you're thinking. All right. And you let your daughter talk. All right. And then we always want to work around facts.
I was going to say, when do you interject the actual facts?
Yeah, we want to interject the facts, because when they're emotionally charged with this, like, they create their own truth.
Yes.
They create their own reality. Okay. Well, this is how I feel. Okay. And so, like, there's lots of good, solid information out there about the facts, about body dysphoria, gender confusion. And so you want to start just having these conversations, right? And just saying, like, if we come from a family of faith, like, let's bring our faith into this conversation. What does God's word say about this? Okay. And the authority, this is a great conversation to teach your kids about the authority of life.
Yeah.
If the authority of life is the other 14-year-old girl at the cafeteria table, your daughter needs to know how shaky that ground is.
Yeah.
But if the authority is you, okay, maybe a little better. If the authority is God, okay, all right, now we are a starting point. So, again, these are tough conversations. I do think that if you get these and you feel inadequate, do get help.
Yeah.
All right, do get help, but you have to get them help in the right way. If you say, you know what, there's something wrong with you, you're going to a therapist, well, the chances of them doing well with a therapist is going to be slim. You really have to walk through the mud with them a little bit and go, okay, I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to hear. I don't feel adequate in talking about it. Maybe we can talk to somebody together.
Yep.
So
yeah, I like it. But before we close the show out, there's one last question. I kind of this is something that I would say is very eye opening to me because of the work that I do. This idea of drugs and alcohol, and if and when your kids, get peer pressure to use drugs, to use, to consume alcohol. This is something, where I work at, the heroin epidemic that we saw ran rampant in the city of Dayton. And this is something I experienced firsthand, the devastation that causes.
Yeah.
And so, this idea of if and when your kids are asked to do drugs or asked to, consume alcohol, this is something that's gonna happen. Man, this is something that I can really speak into a lot with my girls. But again, trying to find the right words because of some of the things I've seen, some of the things that I've experienced with people who have consumed and taken drugs, and hardcore drugs.
Yeah.
And the devastation that has caused and what that looks like for them future, and the struggles that come along with that, down the road when because of the addictive nature of drugs and alcohol, how that is something that is a perpetual cycle that seems to really keep coming up. And we make runs on the same people who have overdosed 3 and 4 and 5 times. And it's just the devastation that really brings. So this is something that as much as I would like to think my girls will be, that's not going to be them. I also know that is not going to be true, that the peer pressure that is out there in this world is going to be so evident. I mean, it's going to be so clear that they're going to be pressured to do things. And I think, similar to a lot of what we've been talking about, this idea of talking to them at a young age and introducing some of these topics, it's kind of sucks. I'll be honest with you. It sucks that raising kids in today's world, that all these conversations have to happen, right? But I also think because of who we are strong dads. We should never shy away from these. That we are called to be, the strong male figure in our kids' life, to be able to speak truth about the things that are going on in this world. We'd be very naive to think that our kids will never experience all these stuff we've been talking about and just let it passively, pass them by in hopes that they'll turn out right. And I think with the idea of drugs and alcohol is no different. That, man, we have to talk about this. This is something I remember. My first beer was on my 21st birthday, and I'll be the first to tell you, I never really my dad never sat me down and said, son, alcohol is only consumed on your 21st birthday. But this is also something I have seen, the devastation of what alcohol can do. And how it can really wreck homes. And it was just something that in my mind, I never got caught up in the party crowd. And this was not something that necessarily my parents ever took time and talked to me about. I remember my parents said if I didn't smoke cigarettes until my 18th birthday, I would get, I think, like $500 or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and was that a driving force for me? I don't know. But I also saw, I was active in sports, and I also saw the devastation when it comes to smoking, what that can do for your lung capacity and so on and so forth. So, when it comes to this idea, how have you tackled this idea of drugs and alcohol with your kids, especially your 2 older boys?
Yeah. This was a tough one for us because I wish I could say I didn't drink my first beer till I was 21, but, I was much younger. I grew up in a family and a community of lots of drinking.
Yeah.
Watched my dad do it a ton. Mostly a fun drinker.
Social?
Mostly, more than social, but mostly with us kids, he was still fun.
Okay.
He wasn't so good with my mom. And so there was just enough flavor of that made me go, I don't like some of that. But when I became sort of in those high school years, I mean, I don't know, like I was so desensitized to it that I really didn't even have a lot of second thought as to whether I would ever drink, because it was always part of the party, and so drugs, no, never, didn't mess with drugs. Had a lot of buddies that did, but I didn't. And I think what I have to be aware of here is there are a lot of cultural things, a lot of traditions in family. And so there's a lot of just dismissal of it. Okay, like, well, it's just a beer or whatever. Okay. And I think the big part here is, as you kind of talked about, like, did dad ever educate? Well, my dad never talked about the bad of alcohol. Okay. But I think we do have to educate our kids.
Yep.
Of the responsibility of their decisions.
Yep.
Okay. The one thing I've shared on the show before is even though I did drink at a very early age, my dad always said, well, if you're going to play with the big boys, you're going to pay with the big boys. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so he never saved us from consequences. And so what I would say is it's very important that we want to educate our kids. Like, listen, I'm going to tell you not to do that, but I'm also going to tell you that if you do that, you're going to pay whatever the payment is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to come to your rescue, whether that's sitting a night in jail, losing a car, losing a license, whatever it is, all right, failing grades. So I think those are important conversations to have up front. But the drug thing has gotten really crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, and in my day, it was the occasional smoking some weed.
Sure.
And there were the hardcore dudes did Quaaludes. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's basically make you feel like you're drunk. I never did a Quaalude, smoked a little bit of weed, and it just never, I don't know, like it never really did much for me. So I don't know, it didn't. So, but the difference today is the intensity level. We go to drug trainings and stuff, and they talk about the intensity or the strength of THC in the marijuana today due to genetically modification of it is hundreds of times stronger, more potent, creating much more damage and influence on the brain. But even beyond that, like I'm working right now with a gentleman who's in prison, and I don't know if this is possible, but he said in one night he got Narcan shot in him 4 times. Is that a possibility?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people think you get one little dose of Narcan. I mean, we've given every dose is 2 milligrams of Narcan. Yeah. At least the what we give, what people actually carry sometimes is a 4 milligram dose. But we carry 2 milligram dose. I remember in 2016, 2017, we were given 20, 30 milligrams.
Wow.
We're just pushing this up because it was so stinking strong.
Yeah. He said he got shot 4 times in one night and ended up in prison. And so that's a different story. But the idea here is the addictive nature of this crap. I mean, this is it's crazy. And so I just think it's really super important for us as dads to not play with this with our kids, to be very upfront. I want, just like before we were talking about the facts, show your kids the facts. I want to show them the facts. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what happens, guys. I'm not candy coating this one bit. These are the real consequences of it. Yep. And, lay it out there. Try to protect them the best you can. You need to know what world they're walking in. Yep. But yeah, alcohol in our house, I drink an occasional beer now. I'm not a big, it's just, I can take it or leave it. When you're 21, the law says, and again, it's another trust and maturity issue. Yep. When you're 21, I'll drink a beer with you. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I'm just going to tell you, it's a maturity thing, and I'm just not going to endorse it. Yep.
Well, good deal. Yeah, these are just some of the questions that kind of popped in my mind. I know you wrote a couple of them too, as Merle. Man, if you guys are still hanging in there with us, really do appreciate you. These are just some of them lighthearted, some of them fairly serious topics that I think a lot of dads are thinking and asking or getting asked, depending on what stage of life your kids are at. So again, just like most of the stuff we talk about here, I think it's our job and it's our duty as dads, as strong men, to be engaged, to be a part of these conversations, to not shy away from them. We're just like what you were saying before, like there's going to be peer pressure. Our kids are going to be, hearing voices from everybody in this world. So we have to make sure that we're one of those voices that they're hearing, and hopefully that they're hearing us the loudest out of, but again, everything's age appropriate, making sure you're approaching it. Man, I would encourage you guys to your wife has to be a part of these conversations as well. This can't be a one-sided thing. If you, are divorced, I think what better way to show your kids what coming together to accomplish something could be, to bring alongside of your ex-wife and making sure you're speaking the same language here, that you're both in agreement with this and this idea of raising your kids, and making sure that we're tackling this together. I think it'd be a great, kind of a good takeaway for this, that we should never shy away from these conversations.
Yeah, getting aligned with your spouse is the first step to making all this go a whole lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, one thing is, you guys listen to this, respond back to us.
Yeah.
Write what you would do. Okay. Write what was done with you when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
Or what now you as a parent have done and said to your kids. These are things that we've talked about based off of experience and just our input. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Absolutely.
And so I don't think any of these answers have to be dead set and concrete, right or wrong. I would ask that if you contribute to this, do it in a positive way, because we're all trying to say, like, well, here's what worked.
Yep.
Okay. So again, thanks a lot for listening to Strong Dads. Continue to share our show as you guys have. We greatly appreciate that. We want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Quality Auto Mart and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for continuing to support the Strong Dads message. I think that's all I got. What do you got?
I love it. Yeah, reach out to Rockstyle Families if you got any more questions. If you want to kind of dive into this a little deeper with Merle and Linda, I know they would love to come alongside you, so reach out to them. Besides that, go out there and be some strong dads.
Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.